Not when you hold me. Your beauty weighs on me. This feeling's too good.
So energy can be borrowed for an instant. So with that mindset, I think about channeling. I think about how I call upon this spirit of Einstein. I call upon these famous philosophers and physicists to make this make sense. So when I was studying I didn't write it, but when I was studying the Bell inequalities, John Bell, I called upon his consciousness because all time is happening all the time. That means that I can connect because of this is like wormhole activity, time travel. Negative curvature is what helps me to understand that I can bend space and time. Negative curvature talks about how you can pick a certain point in time and you can connect to it. And those timelines will cross momentarily. So I use that same idea of positive curvature and borrowed energy and tunneling. What tunneling is a real thing. Matter of fact, here's my book, 30-Second Physics. I got this in London. I'm gonna go to it. Tunneling, I wanna read it to you. But right here, it allows subatomic particles to borrow energy for a brief period of time and get over energy barriers that would have otherwise been too large. Let's say that energy barriers are blockages, are mental modes, are certain mindsets that we have for ourselves. That let's say that Imani here now doesn't believe that she deserves the Nobel Prize. That's an energy barrier. The Imani me will, the Imani right now, if I say that, she will never believe that she deserves the Nobel Prize until I can energetically get over that thought. Where is that thought tied to? That thought is tied to where is feeling undeserved. And so what I do is, when I'm in a meditative state, when I'm in a meditative state, I look like this, a positive curvature. I'm whole, I'm one with all that is, all that ever will be, all parts of myself, all of everything. God has the answer type shit. And I need to get a game plan that I can lay down out and collapse myself in time and work on. That game plan, I want to borrow energy from the part of me that deserves, that knows that she deserves, because all time is happening all the time. So I play with that idea of being like, okay, well, if this is true, I was like, then I can connect with the Imani that has gotten through this. Tell me what the fuck to do. Tell me the game plan. But again, I'm a flat earther. I need the game plan so I can get to this next zero curvature. When I'm in connection, I'm like this, I'm whole. When I'm operating in life, I'm linear. I've taken that wholeness and I flattened it out, and now I'm walking on that faith in that wholeness. Here, this is an infinite number of lines parallel to a given line that goes through a fixed point. So this is negative curvature, where basically I can bend space. It's like crinkling a piece of paper. When you crinkle a piece of paper, it's like flatlanders. 2 points that were once far apart from each other, when you crinkle it, they're now closer because of a certain action. So I take that same idea of thinking about wormholes. I poke myself, I realize who I am. I can know where something else. I realize who I am, where I am, the position, the vibration I'm on. I recognize that I might not have the tools currently to get out of this mindset, but there is a me that does. And so I sit in my meditation and I envision this positive curvature. I envision being whole. So now I am this Imani. All time is happening all the time. So all different realities are all now together, and I'm in it. Okay? I'm in it. I'm in that, all of those realities. And what I'm doing is I'm talking to myself and I'm connecting. And I ask to be taken to the Imani that has gotten through this bullshit. Once I do that, I've now been quantumly entangled. I've made a pair. Remember, when you're quantumly entangled with something, you're forever quantumly entangled with it. So I connect with that part of Imani. I've created a negative curvature now, where two timelines are existing at the same time in my meditation, in my mind. And I'm asking questions. I'm like, how the fuck do I get through this, right? Once I come out of that meditation, I take the information. This is quantum information. I take the information and I pull it, and now I'm back at this zero curvature. I have that information, that knowledge now. But because of quantum entanglement, I know that I am now entangled with a part of me that knows. And so through that connection, I continue to just make actions. And I listen and I watch my thoughts. I become aware of my thoughts. Because the Imani then, she didn't think that she deserved. So I went and got the thoughts from the other Imani. I bent space and time, and then I came back. I collapsed it back on myself, and I continued to move. And that's tunneling. We're made of a bunch of subatomic particles. So I allowed the subatomic particles from myself to borrow energy for a brief period of time to get over energy barriers that would have otherwise been too large. And those energy barriers, what I like to call unclarified sediment, trauma, thoughts, experiences that need to be checked on, that need an awareness to come to fruition, that need an awareness to be collapsed in time. When things are collapsed in time, this is the material world. That's why I believe flatlanders, flat earth. Tunneling. The phenomenon of quantum tunneling explains how subatomic processes such as nuclear fusion and radioactivity can overcome what appear to be energy barriers that should be too large for them to happen. So nuclear fusion. For example, and this basically talks about, so right here, using classical physics, the electron should not be able to escape the nucleus, meaning the Imani me should not be able to escape the reality she's in, because I've created this reality based off of the actions I've made. But the Imani in another time can escape it because she has the knowledge, the information, the quantum information to get out of this vibration. And so what I do is I have faith in my system being an understanding of who Imani is, knowing that I, Imani, am in somebody that can connect, somebody that knows this information. When I connect, I just connect to that Imani and I pull information, I bring it back. It's the same thing when people are connecting to mediumship, channeling. They connect to the dead. They're pulling information. They're collapsing themselves, or they're taking. When you sit and you spend time on yourself, your positive curvature, and in that space you can receive any information. This is that flow state. When you're in that flow state, though, back to what this picture was, when you're in that flow state, you're that positive curvature, but when you come back down, you're then zero curvature, but you're still in connection. So now you're not raw dogging life, and you're moving on the timeline of life in with a harmony of your connection of the reference point. Meaning this is literally the book of your life, and you're moving on that connection. That's all I gotta say for right now before I get too confusing. But tunneling, borrowed energy fuels tunneling at extremely small subatomic distances. So it's easy to describe life when you're looking at it from a higher perspective. Someone said that describing the world from a higher dimension is a lot easier. And so that's what I did. I started to think of the trueness, the true essence of who we are. And I was then able to look down and be like, oh, it is simple. Okay. So the last section I want to talk about is how the reason we are moving, and the thing that stops us, is one, expectation from ourselves. So that's the thing that stops us from continue on with life, is an expectation, is an energy barrier blockage. And in tunneling, it talks about how subatomic particles borrow energy for a brief period of time from other particles to get over energy barriers that those other particles have already gotten over. So in this case, I want you to think of that energy particles as like trauma, obstacles. Here I have neurotransmitters. So this is how energy is coming into the brain, neuroscience. What I wrote was neurotransmitters. The reason I looked here is because from here and understanding how the system works, and I was like, okay, but when we have energetic blockages within us, it's because it's a disconnection between our mind and our body. Our mind might think something that is based off of an experience we have already gone through. I call this acting on a reference point, creating a memory. And so sometimes our mind does not remember what happens, but our body does. And this is because the mind is a separate entity. The mind is a separate being. The body is a separate being. That's why when I talk about the ego, I describe the ego as being this one thing. Your ego is your character in this lifetime. Angel number 333, the number 3, the vibration of 3. The character you chose. But that character is a body and a mind together to make the character. And so that's why sometimes your body will do things that you don't really recognize. And the way that I read energy is I pay attention to body language. I pay attention to the colors that your body is asking for, as well as the mind. And I bridge that connection. But because I'm quantumly entangled when I do an energy reading, I utilize my body and the things that happen to it to understand what's happening to somebody else. I know it's fucking confusing, probably to some, not to me, but trying to explain this, what I'm doing, it'll slowly make sense. Again, I know where I'm going, but I know who I am, but I don't precisely know where I'm going, okay? So I know that I'm talking about this, I know that I'm trying to understand this, and eventually it will lead me to where I need to be. And so sometimes I'll have like an itch here. I have the way my body is set up, the way that I have programmed my system, my body, is that when I have a certain itch, a certain scratch somewhere, it tells me something about myself, and then I use that to be a divination tool to other people. And so if I scratch on my left arm, it's receiving information, the left side is receiving information, but also it's receiving information on how you can move through any burdens in life. The right side is values, but also the shoulders is armpits is burdens. So if I start to sweat when I'm talking to someone, I know that I'm starting to get to the nitty-gritty of things, the burdens. I'm handling the burdens. Hips represent certain something, sacral chakra. The neck represents Taurus energy. It also, when people are coughing, or when they're like clearing their breath, that it's something that they need to speak on. So it's a value that they're holding, and there's so many different things, and I get really excited to talk about it because that is how I read energy, but I'd be too accurate sometimes. But people basically don't know that their body, because their body is its own entity, it speaks very loudly, actually, very loudly. But when you're not aware of it, you don't realize even that. So that's why, sometimes I'm self-isolated too, because essentially when I'm reading, and I'm not doing it on purpose, it's just when you know so much about the fucking world, it's like it's obvious. I can't not hide it. And so I've learned to just work with it. And I realize that people's body language, the colors that they wear, it's telling on them all the time. And so in talking to people, I want this certain honesty, but people are letting their egos be in front of a lot of stuff. Not only just their egos, but the traumas that they're going to, the certain mindsets they're holding. And what that is that's energy in your neurons and your nervous system that is not aligned with the truth of who you are. And so when I meet people, I meet the truth of who they are before they even know, because I see very clearly through it. But it's hidden by a lot of unclarified sediment. It's hidden by energy barriers that people have to get over. And so that's why, I believe that everybody is a great person, but until they understand themselves, they're not really going to know where they're going. Until you can quantumly be entangled, you're not really going to know how to play the game. And once you get quantumly entangled, you then need to start working on your neuron pathways. And we're going to talk about that.
Listen.